back to SmackDown though, because I've got to.
Are you sure?
Well, no, he's got to puke. No, I've got to talk to my boy, my young son, my spiritual son, Austin Theory. Because remember at the top of the program, they'd come out, Waller was going to have a match. Well, then they argued with the Carmelo Hayes, and now it's going to be Austin Theory, Waller in the corner, the sublime and the ridiculous, against Carmelo Hayes. And it is no secret that I've been a fan of Austin Theory's. And that was the one thing when Vince was around after he went mad that they were doing right, was at least featuring Theory. I think that his in-ring and physical conditioning at this point in time, well, his in-ring is definitely better than Cena's was at this point in his game, comparable to Orton, conditioning better than Orton's early in his career, and comparable to Cena. At their OVW era, I saw these guys at the same level of development. This kid's 22, 23 years old. He's a prodigy with his work and his timing. And he knows how to bump and feed. And bumping and feeding is not just taking a bump for something and popping right back up to get hit again with no change in your physical, facial expression or body language. Bumping and feeding is getting hit with something and taking a bump. And it seems that your momentum propels you upward and staggering, and you turn and your eyes, I'm shocked that, boom, you're going to get hit again. And you take a bump a different way, and you feed, you leave your arm out if you need to be shot off, or you leave something open if you're going to be drop kicked or whatever, the timing. In terms of, he doesn't just stand there, Austin Theory, and wait for some schlub to dive on him. He's distracted or he's staggering. He turns at the last minute. You see the shock and surprise on his face before he gets hit in the mush. He sells that. His in-ring work is smoother with the basics and with the right timing than almost anybody his age. He's a prodigy, right? And he can talk. And he gets more confidence as he goes along. He's still a young man. He's grown the beard, so he's scruffed up a little bit. But he looks like an arrogant and an obnoxious and an egotistical prick that would talk down to you or be the college jock or whatever. He's got an unlikable persona as a heel, and he's fairly glib, and hopefully he will get further progress verbally to the point where he'll be the ones that they let talk on his own instead of being given these scripted lines, but he delivers them better than most people. What he doesn't need to be doing, because he's so much farther ahead on all the important aspects of the game, verbally, in-ring work, conditioning, visual appearance, attitude, facial expression. He's a grinning, expressive prick. He doesn't need to be doing flippy-do shit like every other goddamn trampoline cowboy and jack-off. He's ahead of that. He's beyond them. And what did he do here? He did great stuff because he was working as himself. He's a worker. He's a pro wrestler. He's not a goddamn gymnast. And he doesn't need to be, because he will be a money-drawing main event level talent, not an indie goof in the middle. But he goes out and he has a match with Carmelo Hayes, who honestly does some good shit and is in shape and looks like an athlete and is probably going to be the description of an indie goof in the middle when all is said and done. And Theory tries to do flippy shit and nearly broke both their fucking necks and had to stop the match again. Brian, is that 2 times in 3 weeks they've had to stop a live television match because people can't stay off their fucking heads?
Yeah, that was surprising. I had to watch that a couple of times because I wasn't sure, again, like whenever this happens, if that was the planned finish or what. It just, no, obviously not. And they just stopped it right in the middle. And I guess they felt they needed to, but man, and to me, it always seems like the things that don't look that serious are the things that are the most serious. I couldn't even initially tell what happened, but I guess they
when you saw the replay, it got clearer on the replay, didn't it?
Right, on the replay, yeah, their heads went together, I guess is what happened.
Yeah, well, what happened was Theory had caught the guy and he set him on the turnbuckle and he climbed up and he was going to do some kind of thing where he had a hold of Carmelo Hayes and Theory's back is toward the middle of the ring and he's going to sit down on the top rope and spring backwards and do what is the Spanish Fly, where they both do the fucking backflip over and land, and it's so preposterous looking that the guy's obviously cooperating. They ought to call it unzip my fly and blow me, if you believe this. And instead of doing the Spanish Fly, he did the Spanish Flop, and they didn't rotate far enough. And Theory, the dangerous part was not that they bonked heads when they landed, which they said both got facial contusions or whatever.
Right.
But the most dangerous part that didn't quite materialize was that Theory not only was landing on his head, but he was landing on his head with his neck bent to the side. And that was and one more inch of not going far enough over or whatever, and that could have been a whole lot worse. And the referee slides in immediately and says, let's not do this anymore.
Right.
And again, it's flat as fuck. And in this case, it was a single match. I took them to task in the tag team match that the guys that won the match looked like, well, fuck, we didn't get to do all our shit. Rather, no, we won the match, right? And everybody said, well, that's because they didn't want to win that way. No, it's because they got their fucking performance interrupted and they were visibly pissed and they showed it. You always get pissed when something like that happens. You're not supposed to fucking show it, is the deal. I know what I'm talking about when shit goes south, right? Instead of the people on Twitter. You're always pissed off. Don't show it. React like you would. If it was real, not, I didn't get to do my shit. But here, this was a single match, and everybody just had to stand around or lay around, and the doctor's checking everybody, and the announcer said, well, these things can happen. But that's the thing. You've got a future main event talent, almost broke his neck, trying to do shit that he doesn't need to do because he's a farther ahead of 90% of the guys his age, or in some cases older, and doesn't need to fucking do backflips.
And that happens with a lot of guys like him now, though. People, there are guys that don't need to be doing those kind of things, and they just somehow feel, I don't know what it is, just to fit in or to match everyone else's style, that they have to do things that they have no business doing.
Well, Brian Alvarez, the organ grinder's monkey for Uncle Dave's organ, openly said to Theory a couple of months ago, well, all the indie wrestlers are lapping you. They can do many more things than you're doing. You're working that boring old style. Coincidentally, Brian Alvarez is 5.5 feet tall and 150 pounds and wrestles like Cheetah in a Johnny Weissmuller movie. And that's the last thing Theory needs to listen to is bullshit like that. He's ahead of all these clowns. He's in the biggest company and he has all the tools that genetics, steroids, and fucking Dr. Frankenstein can't add on to any of these indie goofs, and they're jealous. And if I had, having spent years at the top of the largest company in the world's training program, if I was going to give him some advice, I would say do everything you're doing in the ring and work even harder on your personality and get more glib and more fucking comfortable and more confident talking verbally and be a bigger smartass and come up with different ways to piss the crowds off when you're in the ring, either verbally or physically with your actions, and find some different way and get rid of Waller anytime you can. Put strychnine in his goddamn protein powder secretly in the locker room and keep doing what you're doing in the fucking ring and work your ass off. And your time will come unless you land on your head and break your fucking neck and they carry you out on a spatula.